and welcome to today's session. I would love to talk about how to differentiate between a healthy sharing of really getting something off your chest, something maybe hard that you've experienced, and the difference between when it starts to become a burden, when you start to really identify with that and it goes into this narrative, a story that is holding you back. Also, about the phase of awareness, as in the first step, the awakening, the awareness part of the healing journey. For instance, you've been in a toxic relationship, to start to inform yourself about the toxic relationship dynamics, or if you've been through childhood trauma, to really start to understand what you've been through. That is the first step in the healing process. But then we need to let it go. So let's talk about this a bit, the differences and what you can do to not get into these common healing traps. If you've been through something hard, something traumatic, something challenging, and especially if you've had to be quiet, to sort of shut up, to put on a brave face for the kids or for your own safety, when you start to heal, an important part of that process is to be able to share your story, to talk about what it is that you've been through. And it's challenging at first because sometimes it is really scary. And especially when you've had, for instance, a toxic relationship, narcissistic abuse, where your voice has been quieted, when you've had to sort of walk on eggshells all the time to keep someone else happy, or at least not abusive, violent, to keep them happy, when you've had to suppress your own needs, wants, desires for the sake of someone else. But it can also be like in a codependent relationship, even if the person has not been abusive, but that you've had to look after someone else that's been in greater need, maybe through an addiction, through some type of handicap, through injury, sickness. So when you've had to give up parts of yourself, your authenticity, your natural expression, your desires, your wants, and you've had to sort of put a lid on what you want to express, your thoughts, your desires. It is extremely important to learn how to regain your voice and to share what you've been through, to vulnerably share what's going on. Important though, with people that understand you, that are loving, that are supportive. Because if you start to share your innermost secrets, your vulnerabilities, your insecurities with the wrong person, a toxic person, it may just perpetuate abuse, or that you will be triggered to just keep quiet and calm again. So it's so important and so rewarding to start to share, because in that sharing, you will also open up more to listening to other people's stories. And that exchange of experiences, realizing that you're not alone, that your sharing is helping someone else as well, and their sharing is helping you. It is so important in the healing process. When it, however, becomes a burden, it becomes a weight, and it restrains you, is that when it becomes this story that you sort of start to identify with, then it's like, I am the victim of this. And you notice that you get a lot of maybe sympathy, empathy from people. They're extra kind. They listen to you, especially if you have a really hard story, like a full on, so called like you've been through a lot. That can become a fuel for your ego as well. That will keep you from fully healing as well. It can also be that you start to identify with your story, what you've been through. I am a victim of this, or this is me, this person that has been through that. And when that story starts to perpetuate and you identify with that, it's hard to fully heal then. Because healing is about letting go of limiting narratives, beliefs, or patterns. It is about discovering your true essence and who you are underneath or beyond these limiting beliefs, this story that you have about yourself. Because if you look at yourself only as this victim, how are you going to then step into the role, not even the role, how are you going to step into your power as the creator, as a director of your life? To step into that goddess energy or embodying that warrior or whatever it is that you want to embody, your true strength, your passions, your to embody that, not just surviving but thriving. It becomes increasingly hard if you get stuck in this poor me narrative, in this type of victimhood. So I ask you to please share. Please engage in other people's stories as well. It's very healing. But keep examining yourself as well. Is the purpose of your sharing to get it off your chest and to heal? Or has it become, or is it becoming, or be aware when it is might becoming this way of reinforcing your ego and label yourself maybe a victim, and you label yourself, you have this story that you keep telling yourself. The other part that I mentioned in the beginning here that I'd like to talk about is in specifically when you have been through something really traumatic, long period of time, can be in a toxic relationship with a narcissist, psychopath, sociopath, Machiavellian. It can be from a childhood of abuse, of neglect, of addiction. All of these things are important to understand the dynamics of, to understand what you've been through. Of course, specifically if you've been sort of in a narcissistic relationship, to understand the dynamics, to understand what the narcissist is like, to understand what it's like to be a victim, how you become affected by it. That will help you heal from it, because what we don't understand is hard to heal. So it is very important. But that is only the first step in the healing journey. There is also a place for letting go, to not be consumed by gathering more information all the time about what is the narcissist and get into this hateful, angry mood. Yes, initially it's important. I know you have a lot of pent up anger and frustration that needs to get out. But the way to really let off steam and get it out is to do it without your narrative going. It's more like a raw feeling of your emotions, or even how they present themselves on a physical plane. But when you go in to your mind about it, the story about it, this bloody narcissist, this terribleness, just go into this hatred and you join groups about narcissism, to spit hate on them. You look at social media, all these videos about, for instance, narcissistic abuse, and you comment and you get fueled by this hate. That is not healing, not if you perpetuate it. And it comes to a point as well where it's time to let that go. When you gathered enough information to understand, what you've been through, what's happened, and what you need to do to heal. And then you start your healing journey. Then it's time to take a break from it all, to not click on every post, every video, every blog that you see about it, to not get so, to not ignite that fire every time. It's like putting petrol on a fire and just like get into that full on rage and anger and hatred and resentment, because you are then going to suffer from it. Is it not anymore about releasing the pent up anger and frustration? It then becomes more of an adding on to what's there, and then it will bring you down. So, what we can do instead, when we feel all these things, when we feel these hard emotions, when we want to get into this narrative, to tell this story, the two main things to do is to work on holistic trauma healing and deep self knowledge, self awareness. So, what do I actually mean by that? Because it's something that is thrown about quite a lot about trauma healing, about self knowledge. But what is that? Let's look at let's look at trauma healing first. Trauma, it is when you've experienced something, either an event or over a prolonged period of time, situations, moods, relationships that have felt overwhelming, that you could not process, that they were too much for you to handle. And then the so called trauma response got stuck in your body, in your mind, your energy field. And to heal that, there is a number of things that we need to do, especially when we talk about complex post-traumatic stress disorder, prolonged form of abuse or neglect from childhood or from toxic relationships. From that, you need a mix of working with your physical body, because a lot of the trauma is stored there. Working also with your subconscious mind, because a lot of these beliefs that you've gathered during these hard times, you're not really conscious of that. They're in your subconscious mind. So we need to look at what's there, what's the underlying beliefs. It is about cutting trauma bonds, balancing your nervous system, your hormones from this toxic cocktail of stress hormones. It is about understanding your patterns that are not healthy. It's about breaking them, stopping this destructive autopilot. It's about realizing a lot of stuff, what you've been through, what you're going through, and changing that. Helping your body to become free from the trauma, helping your subconscious to reprogram, and removing these stored pent up emotions. So, all of that together, trauma healing. When it comes to self knowledge, I would like to put it into two separate things. One is about understanding your sort of your person, your personality. Like, what is your core personality? What is your your governing values. What are your main passions, your interests? What are your triggers? What are your, beliefs? What are your, to understand you as this, person. That is very helpful as well as part of trauma healing to understand that. But then it is so important just to look beyond just that external idea of who you are, about personality traits, about your temper, your story, your abilities and disabilities, likes and dislikes, what you know, what you don't know, all of these things. Underneath that, or rather beyond that, you could say, is your true essence, conscious awareness. And that, through meditation, through mindfulness, through self inquiry, you can start to know who you really are underneath all this construct identity that you have with external things, people, situations, thoughts, sensations, stories, history. Because when it comes down to it, you are not a work in progress. You're not something broken to be fixed. That's your trauma speaking. That's your ego speaking. Your essence is already all that you seek out there. Your essence, your natural, unlimited self, the core of who you are, your natural beingness, is pure awareness. And my deepest, most sincere wish is for everyone to know themselves. Because in that knowing of who you are, there's basically all the answers that you need. When it comes down to it, you don't need anyone or anything. You don't even need to listen to this. You don't need to do any trauma healing programs or other things. If you truly, wholly, wholeheartedly, fully know who you are. But for many people, we need that help and support to realize that we don't need anyone or anything in order to be happy, peaceful, and free. So it's quite contradictory in that. It's like we need to do the whole rounds. We need to explore all these things. We need to learn about it. We need to get these glimpses. We need to get inspired from people who have walked the path before to realize that it's all good, that it's all perfect, that you are perfect, that you do not need fixing, that you're not broken, that you're not a work in progress. It's not about you learning more stuff. It is rather about removing the illusion, the veil, the filters that you have in front of you of separation, of limitation, of these false ideas that you have about who you are and your identity. Because underneath all of that lies your essence, your true being. What all the spiritual teachers and sages throughout all ages have talked about. It's the same. All the great spiritual teachers, gurus, masters throughout all ages pointed to the very same. They might use different language, different expressions, but they all point to the same universal truth, that it all lies within you, that you are unlimited light, beingness, peace, love, and that we're all united, that you're not separate. So I invite you to look within, to get to know who you really are, your essence. What we could say, the subject that is experiencing everything, all the comings and goings, all the comings and goings of thoughts, of sensations, of situations, people coming, going, night, day, dream, awake. You are that eternal conscious awareness that is observing all the comings and goings. It is the most intimate, you can't say thing because it's not a thing. The most intimate relationship that you will ever have is with yourself, your unlimited beingness, which is shared. So I invite you to explore it. You can't just listen to someone talk about it and think you understand it, because that's up in your head then. It needs to be examined and experienced, like really experienced, not just some sort of in type of religious or new age spiritual text or something you hear, but invite you to experience it right now for yourself in this moment. Ask yourself, who am I? Am I aware that I'm aware? And start to take your attention, turn it around. Instead of looking out there to everything, all these phenomena, all these objects, ask yourself, who is this subject that is experiencing all this? Be curious of that. And the easiest to do that is in stillness, when you're still. And initially, if you're not used to meditation, to being still, to being quiet like that, don't worry if your thoughts arise, if they come. Treat your thoughts like you would background noise in a cafe. If you sit down and you start reading a good book, after a while, all the other noises around you in the cafe, from the coffee machine, from other people chatting and talking, chairs moving around, and maybe kid crying, all of that becomes a blur, a background noise. So try to look at your thoughts the same way. Initially, thoughts will pop up. Sometimes they get even louder when you try to be still. They start to chatter even more. Don't try to stop your thoughts. Don't even try to change them. Just let them be, but you do not focus your attention on your thoughts. You bring your attention back to yourself, to the subject that is experiencing it all. The subject is observing even your thoughts, but without engaging in them. That quiet observer. That is one of the most, not one of it, that's the most beautiful practice that you can do. The most important practice that you can do is to know yourself, to really know yourself. And of course, it is a lot easier to do if you simultaneously work actively, holistically on healing your underlying traumas. Because often it's our traumas that sort of stand in the way from our natural self to just be, to embody that. Because what happens when we're young, when we're kids? When we first come into this world, we are natural beingness. But very soon, we start hearing what the world is like, what other people are like, what we are like. And we start to believe that. But not just that. Often, I'd say most cases, most people have had traumatic childhoods. You might not think about it because if you haven't been beaten up or been completely neglected, if you haven't had, parents that are being, what do you call it, like alcoholics or drug addicts, you might think or that you have had a, good normal childhood. But most childhoods are traumatic because when you had to trade your authenticity, your need to be authentic, for the need to attach, to have a stronger attachment with your parents or primary caregivers, often we've had to swallow, suppress, hide, or mask, or change our authentic expression in order to feel safer, more seen, more loved, included. It can be subtle, like that you're not appreciated when you are upset and angry, that you got more attention, affection, and love when you were always kind and considerate of others. And then you started to shift and mold your natural expression. You suppressed your authentic expression. So, by working on healing your trauma, about removing these limiting beliefs of removing, dissolving the blockages in your body, the blockages in your energy field as well, the block the natural life force from flowing, it will also help you to remove this veil of a false identity. And it'll be easier to be your natural self. So they all go so hand in hand, they're so linked. Trauma healing and self knowledge, what is the same as spiritual awakening? Spiritual awakening, self knowledge, enlightenment. I'd say it's the same. So, yes, they go hand in hand. And for more reasons as well than this. Because for a lot of people, trauma is a precursor of a spiritual awakening, of the desire to really know who you are. It's like you need to be pushed to the edge or above the edge to sort of wake up and just to start to look inward. So trauma can be a blessing in disguise in that. It can be a wake-up call and can be your greatest teacher, however painful it is. So to round this off, yes, I'd like to invite you to get to know yourself deep down. I'd like to invite you to work on trauma healing holistically. And I'd like to invite you to have a look at the people that you admire the most in the world, that have done the most good in the world, that have been most inspiring. Those are all people that have been through trauma. So remember that trauma, it changes you as in person, not your essence, but it doesn't have to define you. You can use trauma to delve into self-knowledge and to really heal, not just the recent trauma, but all the old stuff as well, so that you can truly be free and peaceful and feel inner security. So this is a reminder to you, a reminder to make it your priority, to know yourself, to heal your traumas. And then everything else in life will start to to make more sense, they will start to, you won't get so affected by things that happen. Even if hardship will come, you will be more resilient. So it's not just about healing the past. So when you work on trauma healing, when you work on self knowledge, you build this resilience so that whatever life throws at you, you can handle it so much more easier. You won't get as swept away by suffering, by the really painful emotions. So when things arise, you see them more clearly and you won't go as deep in despair or depression or angry outbursts. So that is the most important thing that you can do in life. Heal your underlying traumas and know yourself deeply. And no, it is not about being egotistical at all. Because when you do that, you automatically become a nicer person, nicer friend, parent, child, neighbor, inhabitant of this world, this earth. And everyone else will benefit from it as well. So thank you so much for joining me. May all beings everywhere be happy, peaceful, and free. Lots of love. Hope to see you next week.